Welcome back to the Your Illini Nation postseason special. Our guy Derek Piper from Illini Inquirer joining us now in studio. You've seen him all year on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. And we made it postseason time, Derek. But I'll start with this. Do we even know what this team is?
They're a talented team, one that has had the highs and lows that have been really frustrating if you're a fan out there. Of course, the storm back against Purdue, 24 down in Mackey Arena, was really thrilling and showed the upside of this team, beating Texas, beating UCLA. We know this team is capable of a lot, but which version is going to show up even at different points in a given game is still a mystery. So they're definitely an enigma, one that has that high and low dynamic, but we'll see what shows up there in the postseason play. It's always been about the postseason with this team. A regular season title back-to-back would have been nice. They weren't really in the mix for that throughout Big Ten season, but it's whether you can get to that elusive Sweet 16, and Matthew Meyer, Terrence Shannon, guys that have been there before. Can they bring some of these other young pieces along? That's really the question mark. And can they play their best basketball? Brad says they are. At times, I think. That's kind of the phrase that he left out there. Can they be more consistent?
He said that after Purdue. Do you believe him, though, that they're playing their best basketball?
Not in a consistent form. I think that if you're just looking at that second half, that was a version of Illinois that's playing at a high level. But when you look at games where 4 of their last 7 games they've been trailing by double digits at halftime, I don't think you've built a consistency where you can say we're peaking at the right time, we're without a doubt trending in the right direction. But if you can channel that and build on that second half going into postseason play, then yeah, I get that. I do like some things that we've seen from the team. I think Ty Rodgers, RJ Melendez, the way that they've come on down the stretch. Obviously, we saw Luke Goody and Sincere Harris have great second halves against Purdue. So there are some things you can point to that factor into Illinois playing some good basketball late. But yeah, consistency is really what people are looking for, and that has been elusive.
They have lived on the edge all season long, these highs and lows, hot and cold halves even, like you mentioned. It's not just game to game. Sometimes it's half to half what they are. That's not a recipe for success in postseason time. Other than that, though, which is the obvious, what are some other things that you're looking at that they have to do well here to make a good run in March?
I know a lot of people are focusing on the slow starts, and for good reason. I think that as you look at it, as it's played out, Dane Danger being off the floor has allowed Illinois to play its best basketball. Coleman Hawkins at the 5, whether you get Ty Rodgers in there or Sincere Harris, playing that quote-unquote small ball lineup. It's not that small when you got pretty much 6'5" across the board at the very least, but they got to figure out the slow starts. I mentioned the deficits they've been in the first halves, but it just seems like teams have been too comfortable offensively against Illinois. We know that they can play some good defense, but they've got to be able to come out and not allow some marquee players like Boo Buie come out and make shots. So they got to be able to address that, come out with more urgency, more execution early in games. Maybe you throw out this full court press when you're not in moments of desperation. I think that's something to look for. And then while there's been a lot of focus on the starts, I think the finishes, you were in the game late at Iowa, at Indiana, at Purdue. Just we're not able to make those plays down the stretch to come up with some key buckets. So I think that Brad has to really dial in on what's their identity late in game when the game's there on the line for the taking. What are you going to go to? What are you going to be able to execute? They got to fix that because, as we know in March, a lot of close games and in those tense moments, you got to be able to come up and make those shots that are the difference between advancing or going home.
We've talked so much about this team being talented, and I wonder, what is their identity? Because how much are you really going to change now with only 2 more guaranteed games left in the season? They kind of just are what they are, aren't they?
Yeah, they definitely are. And you got to be able to navigate this situation. Are you having Jaden Epps come back for the NCAA tournament? If not, are you able to get Ty Rodgers, Terrence Shannon, who struggled with ball handling against Purdue, in a situation where you're able to execute offense, trust that ball handling? I mean, Brandon Newman really was able to turn Shannon over. You're going to see some aggressive athletic guards that will try to take advantage of Illinois if they have some ball handling issues. So we know the three-point shooting has not been there throughout the course of this season. I don't expect that to really change. We know Matthew Meyer can get it going. I still think that shot selection is really a big storyline with this team because they force some tough ones. If they can limit that and try to run more good offense where they get to the paint, I love that in the game against Michigan. They had 46 points in the paint against the Wolverines. If that team can have that emphasis to get to the rim, then I think it can alleviate some of the outside shooting concerns. But on the whole, yes, this team is what they are. It's whether they can hit their peak at the right time. Because, again, this has always been about what postseason play looks like for this team. Can they get to the second weekend or not? I think that's how we define success for this particular season.
Yeah, and it's funny to me, Derek, how for all of the ups and downs this year, if Illinois makes a Sweet 16, I feel like everything has been forgotten up until this point. That's literally how crazy it is from what we view success and what fans view as success for a season in college basketball compared to like, hey, you're 20-11 and okay, it's been all right, despite a 4 straight 20-win season. I want to know this, though. In your opinion, how much is the lack of a lead guard a question mark? Jaden Epps, we don't know whether he's really going to be coming back at all this year. Whether he does or not, he's not really your true point guard. How much will that factor into their march?
I think it's a big storyline because when you think about what's worked in March Madness, having a point guard that you can rely on is really the key for a lot of teams that advance, and Illinois has lacked that. It's been a position that has youth and obviously depth issues after Sky Clark leaving the team there mid-season as well. So Jaden's status is a big factor. Terrence's ability to, I think at times he's been able to create for others, getting downhill. Sometimes his decision-making lacks. He gets charges. He sometimes turns the ball over as he did against Purdue. I like the way that Ty Rodgers is trending with the ball in his hands. I would want to double down on that. I would want to get Ty the ball more in ball screens. I think he makes really good decisions. I think he can get to the rim at a good rate. But having the inexperience there, if you're playing Ty or Terrence kind of has some limitations, he's not a true point guard. That could bite this team as you think about some really good athletic defenses that you could run into.
All right, NCAA tournament to come, but let's get to the Big Ten bracket right now. Derek has a prediction, once again focusing here on Illinois' side. And our good buddy Brad Evans, I don't know, maybe you need to like slip him a 20 or something. Similar bracket here, Derek.
Hey, now.
I'm not saying anything, but he came before us in the show. You've got Illinois advancing here to beat Penn State just like Brad did. What do you like about Illinois having to guard Jalen Pickett? And obviously you think they're going to win, they're going to be able to do something right.
I don't know that I like a ton about Illinois having to guard Jalen Pickett. It just seems like Penn State has Illinois' kryptonite, but the good thing is Illinois has seen what has led to those mistakes where they've got him in bad switches, obviously getting Jalen Pickett posted up whenever they possibly can, and then they surround him with a bunch of shooters. But I think with a bigger lineup, I'd like to see Ty on Jalen Pickett early. I wouldn't mind seeing him slotted into that starting lineup, and that's something that Brad can look for. And just knowing what Penn State is going to try to do to attack you. I think that it's a great half-court team. Micah Shrewsbury is an offensive genius, the sets that he really designs. I'd like to press them. I'd like to make them uncomfortable. I think Illinois will be looking, obviously, for that revenge. It's the cliche, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. I think Illinois will prevail, but Penn State, a ton of motivation sitting there right on the cut line of the tournament. They really need this game to not sweat it on Selection Sunday. All
right, and you even like here Illinois and Northwestern as we advance the bracket. You've got Illinois playing Indiana on Saturday. 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament. I think Illini Nation would feel a whole lot better about that. Why do you like the Illini over the Cats?
We got to give a lot of credit to Chris Collins, Big Ten Coach of the Year for a reason. Boo Buie has really elevated his game to where he was kind of that up and down shot maker that would have some inefficiency. Now he's playing at a high level and was a high pick in the all-conference selections here for good reason. Chase Audige, an outstanding defender, can really get it going. I just think that as you look back at that matchup in Champaign, Illinois was able to get into Bowie with Sincere Harris, make him uncomfortable, kind of slow him down. Northwestern doesn't have a whole lot of other firepower. Terrence Shannon overwhelmed them offensively. So I look for Illinois in what would be a great environment at the UC. Yeah. Northwestern's turnout, Illinois. Let's get that matchup, and I do like Illinois to advance. They just have more talent on paper, but Northwestern, great defensive team, really gritty, and obviously Bowie can get it going.
Yeah, I only hope we can see Illinois Northwestern, and it's a Friday night at the UC. That would be a whole lot of fun. All right, that takes us to Saturday and your Final Four here, Derek, as we look at what you've got. Michigan, Michigan State, Illinois, and Indiana, and you've got the Hoosiers beating the Illini. I'd love to see this rematch as well, and a phenomenal battle of Michigan teams there at the top.
Definitely. I like Michigan to go on a little bit of a run. They need it with their NCAA tournament resume as of now on the outside looking in, but I think they beat Purdue. They got a good matchup. I think that Dickinson against Edey presents that like size. I like the way that their young guards are playing. Kobe Buffkin, Jet Howard, Doug McDaniel. And then Michigan State has been red hot from 3, but going bombs away. I think they beat Iowa. Illinois, Indiana, I think it's a tough matchup going up against Trace, who's been as good as anyone in college basketball the last 2 months of the season. Jalen Hood-Schifino has developed into a bona fide star. We talked about lead guard issues for Illinois. I think that's a big advantage for the Hoosiers, and I do think Indiana advances over Illinois.
All right, who do you got? Hoosiers and Spartans win it at all?
I have Indiana. I've been putting a lot of stock in this Hoosier squad, not trending like world beaters down the stretch, but I just have to rely on Trace, a two-way impact player, dominant on the inside with the ball, great defender. Michigan State, like I mentioned, has been able to shoot the three well. Tyson Walker's been awesome, but if there is a weak spot on Michigan State's squad, it's containing real threats on the inside. Tom Izzo not hitting the portal for a big man. I think it's hurting them. We'll hurt them in the championship game. Indiana wins the Big Ten tournament.
Derek, thanks for your time, as always.